This is one of several dump sites throughout Hall County. A lot of people dump their appliances and tires and things like that at the end of dead-end roads or in the dark of night, places where they normally won't be other people at the time. If we didn't keep a handle on sites like this, we would have a problem with just a majority of the county becoming one big dump site. A case like this, we'll look through the dump site, see if we can identify anyone's name through mail or anything that would identify it back to an address, and then approach those people and start to build the case. The property owners on illegal dump sites will ultimately be responsible for the cleanup, unless, of course, we can identify who did the dump and make a case against them, at which point we could judicially force them to clean it up. The county provides places for all of these things to be dumped, and it's important for people to use the proper receptacles or sites, and so that they don't end up in court and be prosecuted for dumping them in dump sites across the county. A great portion of our time on the job is handling complaints through citizens of the county that may call in their neighbor who's doing something illegal or illegally storing junk or automobiles, and we respond out to those sites, issue a door card, and give them 10 days originally to clean it up, and then if they refuse to clean it up, then continue into possibly bringing them to court through citations.
Abandoned properties are frequently reported to the Enforcement Division. Uninhabited homes are not only an eyesore, they can cause rodent and insect problems as well as other environmental hazards. And these properties decrease the value of the surrounding homes. The Enforcement Division is responsible for abatement of these properties.
A nuisance is not so much a structure, it can be any item on your property that is causing a deterrent to the neighborhood, such as garbage, trash, outdoor storage of junk vehicles. And the main thing we look at with nuisance is more we focus on is structures, because the structure is the main thing that is hardest to get rid of. Generally, people are always going to accept the compliance problem of getting rid of a nuisance vehicle or something like that. The structures is where we have the hardest problem with, and that's why we go into abatements on them, because right now with the foreclosure market that we have, the number of homes that are sitting out there vacant, yards overgrown, the county's having a problem contacting the owners, contacting a responsible person, whether it's a mortgage company, lender, or whoever that has the property. And so we're having to use the housing court under Judge Gregory to go through and do an abatement on the property, to where basically if the violators do not clean it up, then Hall County will come in there after a period of time when the court system has given us ruling, and they will clean it up themselves at a lien basically against the property. We've had this problem for a long time. It just seemed like the last 2 to 3 years with the housing market, the financial market that we've run into, that basically every neighborhood in the county has 1 to possibly 2 of these houses sitting there. And we get calls every day from overgrown yards to pools being contaminated to houses being unsecured, and we're trying to do everything we can to make sure it's a safe environment for everybody that lives in that neighborhood. We run into a few problems, not so much just with the property owner being deceased, but with a property owner absent. You might have them living out of county, out of state, then we've got to go through a lot of paperwork, a lot of deed search to try to find out who we can get in touch with. If they're also a deceased family member, then we have to find out where they died at. We have to go through the probate court to see if there was a will, anybody that was placed in charge of it. So it's not that you can just go out and pull out of a hat that somebody is going to take care of the property. And it's the same with you have a property owner that is out of town, is contacting them, getting them served with some kind of papers, letting them know that they need to come up and take care of this property, because it's their responsibility as the owner of Hall County property to make sure that their neighbors are not being caused a nuisance by their neglect. We have come under the Division now of Public Safety under Marty Nix, and Marty's had a lot of new ideas, new fresh ideas for us to go looking at. And we've also incorporated the Park Rangers into our department, where we're one unit, and through their experiences, what they've had to deal with in the parks, through Marty's 25 years of experience as an officer himself and also the public safety director, I think we've gotten some fresh blood into the division that all these ideas are coming together, and I think they're going to best serve the people of Hall County.
Assuming there is a known violator to cite, the last step in code enforcement is court. This is an essential part of the process. The enforcement officers issue the citations, but the court must determine consequences to affect actual change in our neighborhoods. Hall County has a staff attorney who processes enforcement violations and prosecutes county ordinances. Ann Bishop joins me now. Welcome to the show, Ann.
Thank you. It's good to be here.
Now, you have been doing this job since 1996.
That's correct.
Tell me, what is it that you do at Hall County?
Well, I prosecute the county ordinance violations. I work closely with the enforcement officers, the animal control officers, and other offices that basically deal with non-litigation matters.
What are the steps that you go through? The officer issues a citation, then what happens?
Once the officer issues a citation, the person who was cited is supposed to come to court for an arraignment. At that point, they may enter a plea to the case, and assuming that they plead guilty, which sometimes that is the case, they will be sentenced at that court appearance. If they plead not guilty, they will be scheduled for a trial at a later date, at which time the county has the burden of proving beyond a reasonable doubt that that person is guilty. Assuming the court finds the person guilty, then they will be sentenced at that time.
Now, what are the challenges in proving a violation like this?
Well, oftentimes the challenge is finding the defendant, and of course.
That would help.
Particularly like with a littering violation. You may have a bag of trash, but you don't know exactly who it was that put it there or who it belongs to. But our officers are very good typically at investigating the case and finding the evidence. And that's a nice part. We have good officers who are trained in these particular offenses, know how to prove the cases, know how to get the evidence and prepare the case, so that when I sit down with them to review the cases, I typically find things in order, ready to go to court.
So I guess they don't mind getting their hands dirty in some trash to find a defendant, right?
I've heard lots of stories.
I'm sure you have. So what are the most frequently prosecuted cases? What do you deal with most?
From the enforcement side, I typically see a lot of inoperable vehicles and improperly stored items outside, littering, improper zoning uses, and business violations. Now, there's also, of course, the animal control side, and sometimes some other environmental violations, such as unlawful sewage, or soil erosion issues.
Okay, so you don't deal just with the code enforcement division.
Correct.
It's all of public safety.
That's correct.
Is that correct?
That's correct.
Okay. So how has enforcement changed since the creation of the Public Safety Department?
Well, there's definitely an increased emphasis from enforcement on addressing the violations that are out there, and thus there's an increased volume. We're seeing more citations, so there's more case preparation, and thus there's more court time required, more time or an energy spent on the court's part in terms of getting the cases ready, like inputting cases by the clerk and such.
Okay. Luckily, we have an expert like you to handle that for us.
I don't know about expert, but
well, thank you for being on the show, Ann. I appreciate your time.
Thank you.
Neighborhoods and parks in Hall County are always growing and changing. The mission of the Enforcement Division is to build on the quality of our neighborhoods and parks, to create a safe and clean environment for all of our residents and visitors. We want you to be proud to call Hall County home. Also, check out hallcounty.org for more detailed information about code violations. Thank you for watching. For Hall County Connection and TV 18, I'm Nikki Young.
You're watching TV 18, the government channel for Gainesville and Hall County.